let me say first and foremost, because, we've had our rhetoric related to this topic, and is this a duck if he does it, and all this, should the UFC even be doing this fight and whatever. But I think what he said is true, and it fits what I just tried to throw out there, that the easier the fight, the more dominant Jon is, the more likely he would be willing to hang around. Because when everyone sees our takes, Luke, and they did it on Instagram, and you get a lot of like UFC fanboys or Jon fanboys, and that's fine if you're either or both or whatever, saying like, oh, come on, guys, he's not really scared of him. And then, and DC, I think, said it best too when he put out a video the other day.
I never said he was scared.
We don't believe he's scared. That's what I'm trying to say. We're not physically scared to fight these guys. I think if you're going to use the word scared, which is it's an over-aggressive word, it more comes down to, is he afraid to take the risk when he's basically pitching a perfect game right now? And knowing that with the rule changes on 12-6, that whether it happens soon or whatever, the Matt Hamill win, I mean, the UFC doesn't even recognize it as a win. Everyone refers to him as undefeated. So if he has a really hard fight with Stipe, I think you take him at his word right there, and he wins it and he survives, and that'd be even more fuel for him to be like, I'm done right now. You just saw the war I went through against the greatest heavyweight ever. What else do I have to do for you guys? But Jon does have a big ego, and I think that plays in. And I think you can pick through his words and kind of see that. Luke, tell me if I'm wrong. If you're the UFC, you play to his ego all the way through this process. They have been doing it. It's probably why Dana's been, filleting him at all turns with the pound for pound thing and just trying to make Jon happy and excited about coming back and being that legend again and being that greatest and getting his flowers constantly. But Luke, I think they should do two things to keep us all happy in regards to this. One, tell Jon right now, don't wait for the negotiation. Don't force Jon, if this is public negotiating, to continue this rhetoric that he's doing that only makes him look bad or at worst a ducker and all that. Go to him and say, look, we'll do it when it's time on the official number, but we're going to pay you to fight Aspinall. So let's just get that worry off the table. We will pay you what we think you deserve as the greatest of all time, taking this risk. And number two, Luke, because he does seem to want the Poatan one. He does seem to want to add that name to the legacy. He realizes what Poatan's doing, and as we talked about, realizes that it's probably an easier fight for him. Tell him, you know what I mean? You'll get that Poatan fight next, and you'll get it in a damn stadium. Like, play to his ego, in my opinion, completely, so that part is not a worry. That would help us lube this situation to lead into Saturday night, because I think people are, tell me if I'm wrong, I think people are more interested in what Jon's going to say on the microphone afterwards than even how he looks or whether he gets that W. Now I don't really mean that in terms of the W side of it, but like, we really want to see which direction. Is he going to go the level of taking off the gloves and do the full retirement? Or is there going to be a tease? Or is he going to straight up go from heel to baby and just call out Tom directly? Either way, UFC can get ahead of that. Make sure that, let him know that money's not the issue here, and show him the path. You win this fight against Stipe at MSG because we did wait a year for you. We allowed all this negativity to come because we want this fight so bad. So if you do the solid for us with Aspinall, we're going to pay you for it like a bitch, like a good ass bitch. And then we're giving you the Poatan fight, and it's going to be a stadium fight, and you're going to be treated the rest of the way like what you are, the greatest of all time. Like, everybody wins if they do that. They got to do everything they have to avoid him retiring on Saturday night.
You think that's right?
Business-wise, there's not the UFC. The UFC doesn't win at all. Tell me if I'm wrong. Like, is this only for one night? Is UFC willing to press pause on the division and allow all this other negativity to come in and the news cycles and the media related to this fight for one night and one box office hit at MSG? Is that really what it's all about? Or is it about the idea that if we kind of give Jon what he really wants, maybe we can talk him into keeping going and give us all what we want? Because, Luke, even if Dana's hesitant on going to the stadium route for all the reasons we always talked about the entertainment side and all of that, his bosses seem to want to gain every dollar and cent possible at every single turn. Mm-hmm. You can't tell me that they're not, the TKO and Endeavor and Ari Emanuel aren't thinking, I know what Dana said about those screens and stuff, but think of how many people we can get in here if we do Allegiant or we do Wembley or we do something like that. Jon Aspinall or Jon Poatan, to me, are those fights that get them there. So I think it's behooved to everyone to keep Jon happy, continue to play to this ego. He's the pound for pound number one. He's the greatest of all time. Here, Jon, the key to the city. They got to do everything they can to get him to not say that.
But this is the point I want to bring up. What does the fight have to do to make the argument for Jon Jones? Right now, if Stipe wins, have you really noodled what it would mean if Stipe won? I mean, the amount of chaos. Because what does Tom Aspinall do? What does Poatan do? You got to run that one back.
the best part is that like we actually all deep inside like Stipe and have like no issues with him.
Yeah.
It would be freaking awesome from like a babyface great story moment that we're not even considering. But like when Pena upset Nunes and was like, what a story, what a singular moment of human conquest. Dude, this would be that, and it would fuck everything up. And
it would be
hilarious.
That plus Nate beating Conor the first time, where like even if you can get it back the second time, it doesn't really matter because you still got sunned on that one night. So like the implications of that are fucking insane. But okay, for Jon, what does it need to look semi-competitive? What if it looks too competitive? We're talking all scenarios where he wins.
I see what you're saying.
All scenarios where he wins. Because here's the point.
If it was a war, he'd be a hero exiting, right?
Well, unless they both look old.
Yeah, you're right.
In which case, if they both look old, no.
Because the UFC is employing two heavyweight divisions right now. The active one and the old guy one.
You're so right. I noticed something. They have not fully abandoned it, but they are no longer calling this the baddest man on the planet kind of thing, which I think because it was stolen a little bit by PFL for Francis' sake.
Or because Mike's fighting the same weekend and he's the actual baddest.
But they're not really using that as a marketing gimmick anymore because how can you when Aspinall is out there and no one wants to fight him except for other guys who have nothing to lose.
How can you when you're pulling Francis's name, face, and aura from the Countdown show?
I went back and watched the Countdown show. They didn't completely pull it.
They showed it when Stipe was kicking his ass.
Stipe kicked his ass in the first fight.
But
That's when they showed it.
I love that they go, and then in 2021, the end of Stipe's reign came.
They never show Francis's face.
Cut to black, and all you hear is the announcer saying, "Oh, he finished him." You don't hear Ngannou. You don't see Ngannou. By the way, you know how I sent you that tweet this morning of Jon Jones overnight got mad at Stipe for calling him out on the. I went back and watched on the Countdown. Didn't that seem like a fake setup where Stipe's just like,
dude, they are trying.
And you'll find out. Bitch.
Yeah.
You'll find out.
You know, let me just explain something to you. Do you not think out there in fan watching land that they were highly encouraged to do that by either producers or UFC?
He doesn't talk like that ever.
Ever. He doesn't. I don't think he ever thinks of Jon in that way.
No.
They had to get the fucking paddles to this fight. Now,
and then Jon fell for it. And he's like.
Or it's also rehearsed on his part too. Like it's all just kabuki theater.
Yeah.
You can do that. I just want to point out, I think there is a world where Jon wins. And this fight, while helpful, doesn't really do much to actually add to the argument of whether or not he is the greatest of all time. In particular, we don't really know the answer because if Aspinall continues doing what he's doing and goes on an incredible win streak, the choice to avoid him, such that we get there, will age very, very badly for him. And the win over Stipe will age in again, I won't call it meaningless, but it will age on the side of having less and less meaning over time. I kind of feel like he has to put the stamp on it after it gets a little bit fun and a little bit competitive.
I hear you.
That's so just enough to thread the needle.
Like if he wins a war and we're like, man, that was a great fight. Shout out to Jon. And then he puts the gloves down and retires. You're right. It would be hard. If some of us might have to go, you know what? I'm sick of asking for these guys to fight more. Maybe Canelo was right. Jon, go walk away. You've earned it and you deserve it. But are we forgetting this scenario? What if Stipe gets cut on a head clash in the first round and this fight's a no contest? What are we doing next?
Oh, my God. Remember, I said this before. When Randy Couture fought Vitor Belfort the first time, the glove went by his ear and it nicked his eyelid. And it cut he had to get his eyelid sewn back on his face. They had to run that one back. It's like, oh, my God.
Oh, yeah, where it's a KO win, but no one looks at it as a win.
Right.
Yeah.
And he has the belt. Everyone's like, oh, it's amazing. But it's like, but you have to run that one back.